Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. As always, my name is Jay, and in this video I want to talk about the new Tyranid Codex, now out for pre-sale as of the weekend. And just in general, because obviously this is the first Codex of 10th edition. So that's pretty cool. It kind of sets the tone for the upcoming codices and lets us know what to expect. And a few things. I've gone through the Codex a few times, I've seen copies. And first of all, not a lot of changes between the data slates and the indices and the new codex. Seems most things stayed the same in the codex. What the big thing is, the change was there's now a set of formations of detachments, and I really like the way that GW is going with this group of codices. Is that, like in previous ones, it was all about hive fleets, so whatever color your army was kind of dictated your overall rules. Of course, you'd go to a tournament and there'd be green Tyranids and blue Tyranids and orange Tyranids, and we would, like same with mine are white and blue, and we would just choose whichever hive fleet matched the playstyle that we wanted to focus on. That's kind of gone, so it doesn't matter the color of your army, you just choose the detachments. I really like that. Like, going ahead, for orcs, I know there's not going to be a snake bites group. It's going to be a detachment that you can choose. You don't have to necessarily, you can do death skulls the same way you can do snake bites as for detachments. I really do like that. I think it's really awesome. And for this codex, there are now 6 detachments, which is pretty cool. Each with their own set of stratagems and enhancements. There's the new big monsters like the Northern Emissary that's in the Codex 2. Pretty cool. They're closer to like 300 points. Who knows what they'll finish at when they get nerfed. We'll see. But yeah, so as I said, I really like that. I really like the fact that this. Now, the one thing is, of course, previous editions was there were so many stratagems, and now there are still just as many stratagems, but you only have access to 1/6 of them in a game. So your opponent really just has to know the 6 stratagems that you're going to be playing with, not versus all 30. And even within the stratagems, usually there's only like 2 or 3 I'm seeing within each detachment that are even worth playing. So you're going to pick up very quickly which ones your opponents are going to use, which is good to know. But as I said, so today I'm just going to go over the 6. I'm going to start off, of course, I'm going to go through the 6 different detachments, the big changes with those, and what kind of units do I see really working with them. Yeah, it's going to be a long one because there's 6 detachments. So we'll go starting now. The first one is, of course, the Invasion Fleet detachment. This is the one straight from the Index. It's the same thing, right? This is a generic all, comers list that you can create. I still think I could see these in tournaments. They're pretty good. If you liked it before, you're just going to like it now. The main thing about this detachment is before the game begins, you can choose one of 3 detachment abilities. It's either sustained hits 1 against infantry or swarm units, lethal hits against monsters and vehicles, or precision on critical hits against character units. I don't think that third one's going to be used ever. Personally, I just like to look at my opponents. If I was playing Tyranids, I would look at my opponent if I was playing this detachment and go, okay, are you an infantry swarm units type of army? Are you more monsters and vehicles? Which ones do I want to hunt down? Choose that accordingly, and it applies to all the units in your army. Great overall option, great generic option. If you played this before and you liked it, you can play it again and like it just as much. The main enhancements, the main stratagems that I found really good. There is a stratagem called Rapid Regeneration, and there's also one called Overrun. I really like both of them. Overrun basically just allows you to consolidate a little extra far if you want to, or you can make a normal move instead. It's cool. It could be handy if you're trying to go for board control. And Rapid Regeneration adds a 5-up Feel No Pain, right? So, cool. But if you're outside of Synapse range, it's a 6-up Feel No Pain. So if you're in Synapse range, you can put a 5-up Feel No Pain, helps keep your dudes alive. Awesome sauce, right? Pretty much any model in the Codex could be used in this particular detachment because this was the one designed for the Index, right? You could basically use it in any combination, any type of army you want to use, and that's pretty cool. right? As I said, I still think this is going to be used. Yeah, as I said, I think it's still a great detachment option. Up next, we have Crusher Stampede. I saw it. When I saw the name Crusher Stampede, I got happy, and then I read the rules, and to be honest, out of all the detachments, this is kind of my least favorite. I feel it got nerfed pretty heavy. I think the only remnant is the theme, of course, monsters, creatures, and the name Crusher Stampede. But like, Crusher Stampede was a really, really cool way of bringing your army in the previous edition. Loved by Tyranid players. I love Nidzilla lists. I love bringing them. It's my favorite theme. I don't really like Crusher Stampede, to be honest. What do you think about it? Leave comments in the comment section down below what you think. The main thing is, and again, ignoring previous rules, it's just, what matters is, number one, is a monster unit in your army below starting strength? So it has lost any wounds, right? So if it's lost any wounds in the game, you get +1 to hit. Cool. That could work. It's just kind of out of your control. Your opponent has to wound them, and then once they do, +1 to hit. Makes your army a little bit stronger. Cool. As I said, it's not a terrible rule. Compared to some of these other detachments, I think it's kind of weak. And also, if your monster is below half the starting number of wounds, it's also +1 to wound, which is, again, cool. But it's like, okay, so now your models have to be below half their starting wounds to get the +1 to wound. It's very circumstantial. Your opponent can kind of mitigate that. And all they have to do is, when they get a model below half wounds, make sure it's dead. And then you'll never get to use your cool rules. Yeah. But as I said, it's cool if you want to run a Nidzilla list. Obviously you can bring any combination of monsters, creatures. The new Norm Emissary is cool for it. As I said, it's just, it comes down to your particular love. I'm going to try it out, maybe in a few games. I'm still going to be playing Gene's Still Called for a little bit longer, and maybe some Dark Angels, then I'll try out some Nids as well. Yeah. It's just cool, Rampaging Monstrosities was a really cool stratagem I found for this one. I think it gives them Twin Linked, which is awesome. Makes them wound and hit really hard. Once again, for this detachment, I think the Swarm Lord will be your great character to anchor your list with, because it gives extra command points. Yeah. And there's also a stratagem to make you automatically explode. Instead of rolling, you can explode. Corrosive Viscera, I believe it was called, which is pretty fun if you want to just go down swinging with your opponent. All right, that's always cool too. I really liked the one stratagem I thought was really funny was the Savage Roar stratagem, which is whenever your opponent is swinging at you, basically in close combat, you can Savage Roar, which they do a Battle Shock test. If they pass it, it's -1 to hit, and if they fail it, they're Battle Shocked, and it's -1 to wound. Now, the big debate, of course, and I've seen several videos on this already, is the order of operations. If you're going to play a stratagem on the guys swinging, what's the order, right? Do you get to play your thing first? Because if they're Battle Shock, they fail a Battle Shock test, they can no longer be the subject of a stratagem. Interesting stuff. But I like that. It's kind of cool. It's a funny one. But as I said, so overall, I found that the Crusher Stampede just lost some of its awesomeness. I'm going to try it out and have some fun. It wouldn't be something I'd bring to a tournament, but I'd definitely bring it and play a friendly game for sure with a bunch of Nids. Awesome stuff, right? My favorite in this entire codex is the Unending Swarm. I love the feel of it. I love the thematics of it. I think it's going to be a fun one to bring, and just bring as many of the base troops as you can and have some fun. Basically, for this one, the attachment rule is called Insurmountable Odds, and it only applies to the Endless Multitude, which again are Hormagaunts, Gaunts, and Gargoyles. Makes sense? And basically, it makes them like mini, kind of like mini Khorne Berserkers. So every time they're wounded, every time they model in their squad is wounded, they can move up to D6 inches every time. So essentially, you can slingshot your squads at your opponents, and if they shoot one of them and wound them, they can move up. And they can, again, this is really cool because they can essentially be moved into combat. They're not restricted to normal movements. They can move into combat and essentially targeting your opponent before they shoot, or getting into close combat. And once again, because it's your opponent's turn, you will get to strike first. Pretty cool stuff. Help gets your guys across the table, which is awesome, and towards your opponent. And I think that'd be fun, like bringing in like 60 Hormagaunts, 60 Gargoyles, a bunch of Gaunts, a Termagaunt, like a Tervagon, and just having fun with this theme and just spamming them. Obviously, there's the stratagem just as before that you can bring back a squad identical to it for 2 CP, hence the Endless Swarm, right? Which is pretty cool. The stratagems that I thought were cool were, my favorite one was Preservation Instincts, which was by far my favorite stratagem in this one. What it does do is it basically removes the effect of blast. So if you're being shot with blast weapons, it helps keep your Grumblies alive, right? So all these stratagems in this one can basically only be applied to Endless Multitude squads. All the stratagems in this case, like all the other ones, can be only applied to for the Crusher Stampede only monsters. So Preservation Instincts is really, really cool because what it does do is it basically makes it, for the purpose of a blast weapon, they're counted as having fewer than 5 models, removing the effect of blast weapons, which is huge because if you have a squad of 20 Gaunts being shot at, the difference is substantial, right? Like, you could be knocking the amount of shots down to 1/3 of the original shots if they didn't have this one. So it helps keep your little dudes alive. I think that it's an all-star, and I definitely see it being used basically every game. Your opponent is basically going to have to ignore your little guys. In this detachment, the optimal strategy is you wipe out the big guys first and ignore the little guys, because if you shoot them, they move towards you, they can target you, you can have them brought back. And so what you do is you make them a nuisance unit and just send them at your opponent, make them deal with them, but they don't want to deal with them, and that makes it even more fun. And then when they shoot blast weapons at your guys, you play this, and all of a sudden the blast weapons are heavily nerfed, and they kill like 1/3 of the amount of models that they were going to. So I love this particular detachment. It is my favorite, I think, of the Codex. I really like it. I really do. As I said, I like it a lot. Yeah. Up next, we have the Assimilation Swarm. It's also, I found this particular one a little underwhelming and weird. I don't think I'm ever going to use this particular one because, to be honest, I don't have most of the models that I'd want to use to have this particular detachment. It's the weirdest one of all the detachments I find because it only is themed around what are called Harvester units. Now, what is a Harvester unit, you might ask? And in this codex, there are 4 Harvester units: the Psychophage, the Haruspex, which I don't actually have. I don't have a Haruspex. A Pyrovore, which they have the new models for, coincidence, and of course the Ripper Swarms, which I have tons from previous kits. So I have tons of Ripper Swarms. I don't have a Haruspex, and a Pyrovores. I have the old ones, cool. The new ones are actually quite nice. I do like the models. I just don't have any. So we'll see. So that's the weird thing about this detachment. It really favors those 4 models. And the detachment rules feed the swarm. That basically, in your command phase, if each Harvester unit that is within range of an objective that you control, that you have to control, can heal nearby units. So either regenerate wounds that have been lost already, or models back to infantry units. Cool. Which is interesting. So they heal, but they have to be on objectives, or near objectives that you control. So that means they're going to be kind of wrapped. You're going to keep them around objectives, and you have to have another squad near them that is able to be healed. So this one I found really underwhelming, to be honest. I didn't find this one particularly interesting. Yeah. Oh, and the one thing is that a lot of people keep bringing up is I know I've seen a couple reviews talking about the Norn Emissary. It's not a character at the moment, so you can't add any enhancements to it at all. So in case people are thinking of adding enhancements to it, you can't do any. So, as I said, kind of interesting. I found this one to be a kind of a weird one. Yeah, you know, I don't really know what to think about it, to be honest. Yeah, one of the stratagems gives them a 5-up feel no pain, which is cool. I think it's a 4-up if they're in range of an objective, which they should be for this particular rule. So that's cool. Helps keep them alive, helps them allow what they do. They heal stuff. It's an interesting tactic. It's a good theme. Maybe it's just the list I'm thinking doesn't necessarily compute. Vanguard Onslaught. I do like this detachment a lot as well. I think it's going to be used a lot. I could be wrong. I could see this in a lot of tournaments. The detachment rule is questing tendrils, which it applies to Vanguard units. So again, Vanguard, it makes sense because the Vanguard Onslaught, it applies to Vanguard units. Now, what exactly is a Vanguard unit? It's basically Gene Stealers, the Sneaky Bugs, like the Death Leaper, and anything with wings. Pretty much any model with wings. So your fast, sneaky, sometimes glass hammer units that are sneaky, sneak around the table quickly. This applies to them, which is very cool. Yeah. So the other thing is, of course, people keep talking about is the winged Tyranid Prime can be attached to certain units, and that would give the Vanguard Invader keyword to those units. Cool. The detachment rule is questing tendrils, as I mentioned. It applies to Vanguard units. All your units get to fall back and charge, which is cool. And Vanguard Invader units, so again, the Vanguard Invader unit is on the Winged Tyranid Prime, for example. Units can advance and charge. Makes them even harder hitting. Cool. Increases chances. This is pretty cool. I think this is going to be used in tournaments. It's going to be really hard hitting. Yeah. As I said. And the other thing is, again, you can, people are talking about, you can make the Death Leap for your Warlord if you want, which is very cool, because it is a character. Obviously, it's a character lictor. Has awesome combinations. Yeah, this is cool stuff too. So for stratagems, there were a couple interesting stratagems. The first one I found to be really cool was Seeded Broods, which basically allows a turn 1 deep strike. Right? It's 1 CP, and you can allow up to 2 units deep strike like it's turn 1. Turn 2, like it's turn 2, you can make them deep strike in turn 1. That's pretty cool stuff. I like that a lot. Yeah, I like that too. And I think there was Neuronode where you can play it and get them in deep strike as well. That's cool. So as I said, for this one, lists like full of Death Leapers and Lictors and winged bugs flying around the table. I think it's going to be very cool. It's going to hit hard. It's going to be hilariously fun for your opponent to deal with it. The next one is Synaptic Nexus. I can never pronounce that particular one correct. So that's pretty funny. Obviously, Synaptic Nexus, it's applying to Psychers or Synapse creatures in your army. The detachment rule for this particular detachment is called Synaptic Imperatives. And basically similar to a lot of the other codices that are probably going to be coming out in the future and the current data slates, it basically allows you to enact one rule army-wide. 3 different buffs. So basically you can go with a 5-up invulnerable save, which is cool. Once per game, obviously. Once per game activation for these. And then you can also use a stratagem for a particular squad as well at a different time. It's for 5-up invulnerable saves. It is for +1 to advance and charge rolls, or you can choose +1 to hit in melee. So again, completely up to you, whichever ones you want to choose, and use them accordingly. It's cool. It goes army-wide, and again, the theme for this one is more of the Psychers, right? It makes sense. Yeah. One of the cool stratagems I thought was really awesome was the Smothering Shadow for this particular one. It's a really fun way. Basically, you force a battle shock test, and if they fail it, So you basically you force battle shock test for any, the squad if they're within 12 inches of a synapse creature, and if they fail it, you inflict mortal wounds, tons of mortal wounds, which is pretty cool. So tons of mortal wounds. I think this will be great on like neurolictors. It'll be really cool. This will be really cool on just a lot of synapse creatures in general. But as I said, it's a really cool one as well. I see lists like this one just full of synapse creatures. It's going to be really cool. Yeah. As I said, that's just those are the 6. As I said, I just want to go through the 6 detachments. They are all different themed, right? So it's very interesting. Each one I could see a very different list. Obviously, the generic one that was already in the Codex. So obviously, Invasion Fleet. That's the one they already had. An all-comers list could be in that one. No specific list, is perfect for that one. Crusher Stampede, big bugs, obviously, kind of weak. Unending Swarm, tons of Gaunts, Gargoyles, Hormagaunts. Assimilation Swarm, all those Harvester units. Cool. Maybe a bunch of Ripper Swarms running around the table. And Psychophages. Awesome. That's cool. Vanguard Onslaught are all the sneaky and speedy bugs, as I mentioned, so ones with wings or lictors, that kind of stuff. And then the Synaptic Nexus, where you want to build around your synapse creatures. But that's it, in a nutshell, the 6 detachments. I'm really excited to see which ones are more competitive, which ones are more fun. I can't wait to try these out. To be honest, I'm currently playing another Codex at the moment, so I'll be playing Tyranids in the future. It's going to be my next painting project after my current Dark Angels will be my Tyranids, so then I'll probably pick up the new models as well at that time and paint them. Until then, I don't really have a need, so I'm not going to pick them up in the immediate future. I'm just going to pick up a Codex when it comes out, and that way I can, still have some fun games with Tyranids in the meantime. But what do you think of the new Tyranid Codex? What do you think of the new detachments? What do you think? What are you excited about? Do you love the new models? Do you hate the new models? I'm actually really excited about these detachment rules, and I hope that they keep this going forward, because I think every Codex would really benefit from all the colors don't mean anything and just choose your detachment. Yeah. So stay tuned for Codex reviews. I really hope you enjoyed this one. Please leave a comment in the comment section down below what you think about this Codex so far. Are you excited for Tyranids like I am? Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so, and like the video. Until next time, this is Jay saying.